Well, if anything, David Gordon Green managed to follow up one of the most divisive Halloween movies with an even more divisive Halloween movie. Let's discuss.
Purely and simply evil.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it! Do it!
So I recently revisited Halloween Kills, and the review I did for it is up on the channel now. In that review, I talked about how inconsistent that movie was both tonally and from a character perspective to both Halloween 2018 and the original Halloween. And just as I predicted, Halloween Ends doubled down on that inconsistency.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Even more so, actually. So much so that this was probably one of the weirdest theater experiences of my lifetime. While watching it, I experienced a lot of emotions. Namely confusion, some disappointment, and even a little bit of shock. The truth is that the trailer for this movie was very misleading, and that was probably done on purpose. Halloween Ends plays out more like an anthology story than it does a continuation of the story set up in Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, which feels like a strange creative decision considering this movie is being sold on the idea of this being Michael and Laurie's final confrontation.
That makes sense.
In reality, Michael and Laurie's conflict is shoehorned into this movie in the last 20 or 30 minutes. Now, I'm over the Michael and Laurie conflict personally, but the way they approached it in this film felt like a rushed resolution at best. Why not just conclude their story in Halloween Kills and have this new direction make up the entirety of Halloween Ends? Imagine seeing the Michael and Laurie story come to an end in Halloween Kills, and then in the back of your mind, you know that there's another movie coming out, and you're wondering to yourself, what could that possibly be about? That might have added some intrigue to this movie.
Then why the fuck didn't you say so?
Instead, a majority of this movie that's supposed to be about Michael and Laurie focuses on a brand new character. That being Corey Cunningham, and this movie plays out more like a twisted love story than it does a straight up slasher movie. Corey is a troubled kid who's made some mistakes and is trying to put things back together, but one encounter with Michael Myers changes everything for him.
Why?
Now, I can't go into details on that because that would include spoilers, but let's just say their interaction leaves us with more questions than it does answers, especially as it pertains to the supernatural questions that surround Michael. And here's the thing for me, if Corey was going to play such a huge role in this movie and that was always the plan, then why not introduce his character in the previous movie and give people an opportunity to get invested in him? It would also make the emphasis on his character in Halloween Ends seem a lot less jarring.
What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie?
I understand that all of this was done in an effort to do something bold and different with a franchise that's probably gone on way too long. But to depart from the formula this abruptly, and without reason narratively, just felt very uninteresting to me. I appreciate a big swing in a movie from time to time to keep things fresh, but they still need to be logical, they still need to connect in some way. Otherwise, you're just subverting expectations for the sake of subverting expectations. And just as quick as Corey is pushed to the forefront of this story, he kind of feels like an afterthought by the end of the film. As for the Strode girls, Laurie this time around wasn't as Sarah Connor as she's been in the past, which was an improvement. I do think they managed to bring back some of her vulnerability, which made people fall in love with her character to begin with. At the same time, some of the abysmal dialogue that reared its ugly head in Halloween Kills continues here. People speak so unnaturally in both of these films at times that it comes off more like a backyard play or a parody than it does an actual Hollywood production. Allison, Laurie's granddaughter, was as forgettable as ever in this movie to me. Nothing against the actress whatsoever, but the script made me feel absolutely nothing for her character. And I should feel something for her, considering she states in the movie how she lost her entire family and all of her friends due to Michael Myers. If you can't make me sympathize with a character like that, then you're doing something wrong.
Why do you cry?
And that brings me to Michael Myers himself, the reason we all go to see these movies. Some people have said that they're just happy to see Michael Myers on the big screen in 2022, and that people shouldn't be too critical of these movies because of that. Ironic considering Michael Myers is barely in the finale to his own story. In fact, he's been relegated to a side character at best. He sits on the sidelines for most of this movie, so much so that me and my wife looked at each other a good portion into this movie and said, where the fuck is Michael Myers?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Which again supports this whole idea that this is more of an anthology story than it is a satisfying conclusion to his character. The inconsistencies in his character continue here as well. When last we saw him, he was John Wicking his way through an angry mob who just got done beating, shooting, and stabbing him. 3 years later, and he's this feeble, weak hermit who gets overpowered by one character in this movie. And all the possible supernatural aspects to his character that were teased in the previous movies are not addressed here at all.
Fuck me, right?
I wouldn't have such a big issue with this movie if not for its treatment of Michael Myers. He's literally been casted to the side and feels completely underutilized and forgettable. He doesn't even get any decent kills to remember him by this time around. Now I know some may argue that his mystique looms over this film and that's enough for them, but again, when you sell me on the idea that this is the end, you best make it a situation where an iconic character like Michael Myers goes out with a bang, and instead it all kind of ends with a whimper.
Whoopie fucking do. Hey, I'm impressed.
40 plus years of killing and legend building reduced to a finale that was over in the blink of an eye. Funny thing is, I watched H2O not long after I watched Halloween Ends. And if you ignore the backtracking that's done in Halloween Resurrection that followed, H2O is a much more satisfying conclusion to the Michael and Laurie story, and we got that back in 1998. Now, is that movie perfect? No. But at the very least, they made their confrontation feel special. That's why I recognize Halloween 1978, Halloween 2, and H2O as my definitive Halloween timeline.
I like it a lot.
And the new trilogy that began in 2018 that basically erased all of these inferior sequels, as they called them, in an effort to give these new filmmakers complete creative freedom, resulted in one of the most uneven and inconsistent trilogies in cinematic history. Similar to the Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy, each film feels like its own separate thing rather than a coherent arc. The only difference being that the most divisive movie in the Halloween trilogy came at the end of the trilogy and not in the middle.
Don't waste my motherfucking time!
Listen, this movie's gonna have its fans. There are some people who will love it just because Halloween is in the title, and I get it. And I can even see this movie having some kind of cult following down the road because of how weird it is. But as it stands right now, in the present, as a conclusion to a pre-established story, it completely misses the mark for me. Some may enjoy it as a Halloween movie, which is also a stretch considering the Halloween aesthetic is mostly missing here. But one thing this movie is not is a good Michael Myers movie. In fact, I would say that this is one of the worst Michael Myers portrayals in the entire franchise.
This is whack! I can't get jiggy with this shit!
He might as well have not even been in the movie at all. I felt mostly nothing watching this movie, and that's unfortunate considering how big of a Halloween fan I am. But with each new sequel that's released, it's become abundantly clear to me that these new crop of filmmakers do not understand why we like Halloween to begin with, which unfortunately is an all too familiar theme in modern legacy sequels. That's why I'm going to give Halloween Ends the Careless Sam Gerard.
I don't care!
Y'all be cool. Right on.